we had fun tonight. You and me felt alright. But it's time you pick up your phone. You won't be worth my while. Me and you won't work out. Pick it up, pack it up, get a cab and go. It's not your fault, my baby. It's not on you, my baby. I'm just not the right kind of girl for you. You deserve somebody who's loving you. You shouldn't call me later. Promise it's for the better. I'm just not the right kind of girl for you. Cause I got a rule. I hold on to my heart. Share with nobody. I don't want nobody else. Yeah, I hold on to my heart. Give it up for nobody. I just keep it to myself. I ain't got room for love. I don't need stars above. All I need is my precious space. Yeah, yeah. Sure we had fun tonight. You and me felt alright. But it's time you pick up your phone. You won't be worth my while. Me and you won't work out. Pick it up, pack it up, get a cab and go. It's not your fault, my baby. It's not on you, my baby. I'm just not the right kind of girl for you. You deserve somebody who's loving you. You shouldn't call me later. Promise it's for the better. I'm just not the right kind of girl for you. Cause I got a rule. I hold on to my heart. Share with nobody. I don't want nobody else. Yeah, I hold on to my heart. Give it up for nobody. I just keep it to myself. I ain't got room for love. I don't need stars above. All I need is my precious space. Yeah, yeah.
Hello and welcome to my channel. It's the Network Specialist. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell so that you know each and every time I upload a video. Everything I will discuss in this video is alleged and in my very own opinion, used for entertainment purposes only. Today, I will be doing a recap of The Real Housewives of Atlanta Reunion Part 1, Uncensored Extended. And let me just say some hellos. Hey, sound check Annette. My sis is in the bushes listening. Not a problem at all. And guys, if you are in the bushes, just go ahead and like the video. That helps to keep my videos in the algorithm. Hey, Annie Lennon, thank you so much for being here. Great to see you. And sound check also let me know that she can hear me. Thank you so much for that, sis. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So everybody was getting all glammed up, and Phaedra realized that Britt was MIA. And guys, is it just me? Hey, TNTG Mom, thank you so much for being here, love. Is it just me, or did you guys pick up that Phaedra really does like Britt? You know, they were roomies, you know, in Grenada, but she really does seem to have a genuine, you know, like for Britt, and I ain't mad at that. So Porsha was the last one to start getting dressed, but to me, Porsha and Shamia had the best looks. Like their look was almost a tie. Um, but if I had to say, if I had to choose one, I think I might would probably go with Shamia, if I'm being honest. Okay. So Portia was showing off her new boobs, and you know, she made the statement for Andy to smell them. And Andy said that feels like an HR issue to me. Like, I think Andy is starting to get it. Like, people are so happy, and you really have to be careful. Not saying that a lot of these people aren't warranted, you know, when they are suing for SA, because a lot of it is actually going on. But in the workplace, you really do have to be careful because everything is all good until you make waves and then now people want to sue you. Okay. for an example, it was okay for Brit to take off all of her clothes, on the trip, the group trip, but then she wants to turn around and sue because basically somebody else, pretty much did the same thing. So make it make sense. But moving on. Hey, Sharon Godball, thank you so much for being here. So, did y'all see that eye roll when Andy told Shamia, he was like from plus one to the one? Like, I don't think that Portia was feeling that statement. I mean, she was probably already feeling some kind of way because Shamia was on the other side of Andy. But when he made that statement about Shamia being the one, like, they zoomed in the camera on Portia and she did give an eye roll. So the besties are fighting, okay? So Angela had her fan, and since her fan has become part of her wardrobe, I'm glad that she is turning that into a coin because I do believe I seen somewhere that she's going to start a fan line. Get your coin, girl, get your coin, and come up with a cute tagline like all the girls were giving you ideas, the hotties or whatever the case may be, but definitely get that coin, Angela. And Sharon says, yes, that was an eye roll. Okay, so I wasn't seeing things. You've seen it too, Sharon. So the ladies seem to be very disappointed that Britt decided not to come to the reunion. Now, some of the ladies were disappointed because they wanted to light Brit up. So it wasn't that, they really wanted to see Brit because they're feeling her like that. They just kind of wanted to get their lick back. But she shocked everybody because, she spoke to Portia the night before and she never mentioned that she wasn't coming to the reunion. And I think that was done on purpose because, girl, you had to know, like, that couldn't have been a last minute decision that you weren't coming to the reunion because there's just too much prep involved. And maybe Britt couldn't pull it all together, and maybe that's why she had to pull out last minute. And honestly, I would not be surprised if it had something to do with her wardrobe, her hair, whatever the case may be, especially since she was trying to use Kelly's whole entire team. Now, I know a lot of you have seen the dress that Britt would have worn to the reunion. And, the dress was a vibe. It wasn't like all that. Like, it didn't compare to like a Shamia's and a Portia's dress, but the dress was definitely a vibe. But the hair was not giving, the makeup was not giving. Outside of that dress, Britt's look was kind of boring to me, honestly. And if we're being quite honest, I would think that is fashionable as Brit is, that would be a reason for her not to attend the reunion. If her look was not all the way together, I could see Brit skipping out. So I think she had some last minute issues with her wardrobe, her look as a whole, you know, and she decided, okay, these people see me at my worst. So I think it's time to bail out while I still have some dignity left. That's just my opinion. And then it came up that Britt was trying to sue Drew. Now, all of us heard about her suing Bravo, and we did hear some rumblings about her saying that Drew or one of the cast members provided the pictures. But this girl was really contacting Drew behind the scenes trying to sue her. Now, I'm not saying that Drew did not send any photos. From my understanding, Drew just happened to recognize somebody that was in one of the photos. So I believe that's how she got dragged into this. But with these ladies, you never know what's going on behind the scenes and who the real corporate is. So, what did you guys think about Shamia's prayer? I thought that Shamia's prayer was absolutely beautiful. I really did. Like, Shamia really does come from a praying family. And when I tell you, her and her mom, they really do know how to pray and, just sum everything up so beautifully when it comes to prayer. So, Portia said that for this reunion, she did have a goal. So her goal was to figure out who she's going to be moving forward with and who she's closing the door on. I felt that. And we're going to get into it a little bit more later, but I definitely felt like the closing the door statement is for Shamia. Okay. I definitely think that after this reunion is over, that Portia is going to quietly close the door on Shamia. So once we see all three parts of the reunion, then I guess we'll get our answers soon enough. So Cynthia came in, a little late because she is a friend of, and Andy was absolutely correct about Cynthia. Like, she was the glue that brought everybody together. She was everybody's support system. So she had a very, very important role this season. And I love the way she played this role. She had a lot of fun. She was able to, connect with a lot of these girls, even some of the newbies. So Cynthia needs to continue to be around. Like, she is good for this show. And she did clarify that her boyfriend's name is not Amsterdam, because I know a lot of people, including myself, have been calling her boyfriend Amsterdam, but his name is Lil Prince. And, she did clarify that he's a DJ, he's a singer. We've seen pictures of him in concert. And then she mentioned something else, a singer, a DJ, and an MC. So that's what Prince Charming does. And Cynthia seems to be very happy. I'm happy for her because one thing Cynthia is going to do is get a man, honey. Cynthia don't have no problem getting a man. While women in their 50s sometimes struggle, honey, Cynthia can always get a man. I'm just saying, shout out to her. I ain't mad at it. Now, on the other hand, when it comes to Phaedra and her young dude, I really do not believe that Phaedra is seriously dating Shaq. He just does not seem like her type. I could be wrong. Phaedra just doesn't want to look single because for whatever reason, I guess she thinks that makes her look inadequate some kind of way. But what women fail to realize is that when you got it all together, like when you're, taking care of your finances, your kids, your household, whatever the case may be, as a single woman, like you don't have to feel some kind of way because you don't have a man. Now, if you weren't being able to do those things, I can understand you feeling some kind of way. But at the end of the day, like women should really fall in love for love and not for what a man can do for them or whatever the case may be. So honestly, for me, when it comes to Phaedra being single, handling her business, because she has a lot of them, okay? Like Phaedra's attorney. She has his funeral home. She practices, what is that? Yoga thing, whatever the case may be. Like Phaedra has a lot of jobs, okay? On top of being on these reality TV shows, she has a lot going on. So to be honest, she looks better without a man, in my opinion. She can just call one up when she need one, but feeling like she has to have a man, like, I don't feel like Phaedra has to do that. Now, y'all can say what y'all want about Andy, but Andy definitely asks all the right questions. Like, I believe that Andy be on social media harder than us content creators, subscribers, whatever the case may be, because, like, he touched every point, and this is only part one. Like, all of the questions that I had and I wanted to know the answers to, like Andy asked them all, and there's more to come. So Andy definitely spends a lot of time on social media to see what the people got to say because, baby, and he knows how to insert those questions, the audience questions, all at the right time. So, I can somewhat see why, CK is so envious of Andy because, Andy, he does his job well. Let me just say that. He does a very good job at what he does. And I don't care if, he likes these girls, if they're his faves, when it comes to the shade, he just pretty much is all the way across the board. He's going to get to the answers and to the bottom of the questions that the audience wants to know. So he asked Portia if she could just say, the reason why she divorced Simon. And Portia said she felt like she was in danger, but not physically. So, what did that statement say to you guys? Because for me, what it said was that Portia did not want her name and her brand mixed up in Simon's scamming ways. Hey, Mama Bees, thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for all you do as my moderator. And welcome back from your vacation. I hope you had a great time. So, yes, that's what it said to me that at some point, Phaedra felt like Simon was, and I'm not going to say a scammer, but she didn't trust him. She didn't trust where he was getting his money from. Things just weren't adding up. So she started to get curious about what Simon actually does. And I believe that's the reason why she filed for divorce. Because at the end of the day, once you marry somebody, you can be implicated in whatever it is that they have going on. So I think that she felt like, her livelihood, when it comes to her freedom was in jeopardy. So Portia decided to bounce. And I don't blame her because, you know, I know Portia thought she won the lottery when she got with Simon, but dating somebody and living with somebody is totally different. Once she actually lived in the same house with Simon, she's seen all of the red flags. I mean, we seen them before she got with Simon, but apparently she was blinded by the money and she really didn't see the red flags until she was living under the same roof as Simon. And then not only that, I think it was the fact that he spent so much time away from home traveling and she just really didn't know what he was up to. She didn't know if he was, scamming. She didn't know if he was cheating. She didn't know if he just wasn't that into her because if my man is always traveling, especially when he should be able to do his business from wherever he's at, like he doesn't have to show up at an office. He doesn't have to do any of that stuff. So the fact that he was always traveling, if I were his wife, I would feel like he was trying to get away from me. Like, you know, maybe I was just a little bit too much and, he wanted to keep it moving. Now, I did agree with Kelly saying that her and Portia's divorce was not the same. And basically, what she said was 11 years compared to 11 months. Although we know it was more like 15 months, Kelly had kids with this man. They built businesses together. I'm not talking about I have a business, you have a business. They built businesses, and like I said, as well as kids. They purchased a home together. So I agree with Kelly. It's not the same. You know, I know Portia wants to make it seem like during those 15 months, she was so in love. Her daughter, misses her pawpaw, whatever the case may be. But girl, 15 months is not a lot of time. Like, it seems like I blink my eyes and it's another year. Like, these years go by so fast. So 15 months just seemed like such a short period of time. So no, you're not going to compare your marriage to mine of 11 years. You know, yeah, you were married, whatever the case may be, to what we thought was the love of your life. But girl, no, Portia is blowing this out. I mean, Portia's marriage could have almost been an annulment, okay? That's just how quick it was. So, no, Portia. And let me tell you, the reason why this says this is because these three ladies right here, baby, they understood the assignment, okay? Like, Kelly was definitely handling her own. Like, Kelly wasn't cutting anybody no slack. And y'all already know how I feel about Drew. Like, Drew was really bringing it this season, okay? And Shamia, she felt very comfortable in her position on that stage. She was in a good mood. She wasn't nervous. Like, Shamia was bringing it too. Now, we're going to get back to Shamia, though, because she did lose some points with me, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I just wanted to give these ladies their props because they definitely did their thing, okay? And I was very proud of Kelly. I know some people say that, Kelly is very excitable and she talks a lot and she's kind of loud. And I think I've talked about this on my channel before. When you find somebody who's very ambitious, very outgoing, just about their business, they usually act and look like Kelly. Because you have to be a little crazy, to be an entrepreneur, to just, be out there getting it. Like, Kelly's the real deal. And she got 4 kids on top of that. And an expensive dog. Okay. Now, when Andy said that he would think that she would be investing that money into opening up her chicken and waffles instead of spending all that money on her spoiled pooch. I absolutely agree with that. And y'all know we done talked about that on my channel as well. The fact that she spends so much money on this dog. I get it. We love our fur babies, but girl, you be doing too much. And it's starting to feel a little bit like Kelly is all about the aesthetics of it all. Like, Kelly really wants to look like she's that girl and she has money. And that's okay, Kelly. But the problem with that is when you're showing this, image of you being that girl and having all of this money and, giving your dog a facial, we shouldn't be getting, we shouldn't be seeing in social media where you're being sued for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So I, see where Andy was coming from. Now, if we had never heard about these lawsuits and things like that, and if you had opened up your restaurant, okay, you got it. We get it. But girl, the fact that you're receiving lawsuits and this and that and the other, and you're in the middle of a divorce, and spending all that money on your fur baby, make it make sense, Kelly. So after watching this reunion part one, I definitely believe that Shamia introduced Portia to Simon. Let me know in the comments if you think that Shamia introduced Portia to Simon. Hey, Cece, thank you so much for being here. And Mama B says, please like, comment, and share the live. Thank you so very much. So when Portia was asked the question by Andy, it was Portia's pause for me. That did it for me. That said that, okay, Shamia and her husband initially introduced you to Simon, and once that introduction had been made, you slipped in that man's DM after the fact, in my opinion. I think that they were introduced first. I could be wrong, but whatever the case may be, I do believe that Shamia and her husband introduced Porsha to Simon. But, but, hey, Natasha Brown, thank you so much for being here. And I think this is my first time seeing you here, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And Natasha came right in with a but I was also getting to a but let's go ahead and read Natasha's but first. Natasha said, but Porsha wanted him from the day she met him at the friend's house. And I totally agree, Natasha. I totally agree with that. But what I was going to say as well is I also think that Portia's goal was to make Shamia look like a liar. Okay. So, what I mean by that is maybe when Portia paused, she wanted Shamia to look like a liar because ultimately she ended up saying that Shamia did not introduce her to Simon. So Portia was very, very intentional about everything she did on that stage for this part one. And Cece said, and everybody is speaking in the chat. Sharon said, I think Shamia introduced Portia to Simon. Okay, so you think she did. And Cece said, I believe Shamia introduced them. Why would Portia thank her for being the matchmaker? Shamia didn't refute that back when Portia typed it. Exactly. I felt like that was the case back then, Cece, but when Portia paused, that's when it kind of sealed the deal for me that that Shamia introduced her to Simon. And Annette said she did. And Cece also said Shamia makes herself look like a liar when she keeps lying about not running Portia down behind her back. I think Portia could blow Shamia up if she wanted to. Hey, Elisa Triplet, thank you so much for being here. So, you guys definitely make some great points. Um, So Kelly had all the smoke for Portia. She said Portia and Dennis be kicking it all in that man's house. So when Portia was saying that, Dennis is such a vibe and they be kicking, and Kelly, you know, said that, all in that man's house. And I totally agree with Kelly. That is disrespectful. I don't care how you look at it, the fact that you want to act like, oh, you was so in love, this, that, and the other, but at the same time, you had your ex in this man's house. I'm not buying it. Mm-mm. And Portia said that it's my house. According to the prenup, Portia does have some ownership, but that man definitely had that house before he married Portia. So it just depends on how you look at it. So Drew stood on what she said about Portia's return being a flop and then followed up and said, Simon says you had no storyline. And OMG, when I tell you, Drew ate when she made that statement. I'm just saying, and Drew had a lot of moments, on this part when Drew had a lot of moments, okay? So Portia clapped back with, she need to be worrying about Ralph, flip flopping with somebody in the basement. See, Portia, that's where you're wrong. Like, Drew does not need to be worrying about who Ralph is flip flopping with in the basement because that is no longer Drew's problem. Okay, Drew is in the process of a divorce, so that is no longer her problem. Let's be clear. And Natasha said, question, why is Portia such a dismissive friend to Shamia? Doesn't seem like she appreciates her friendship at all. Yes, Natasha, you just got here, but I was saying earlier that I believe that Portia is getting ready to close the door silently on Shamia. Like, I think, just like Candy said, behind the scenes, Portia and Shamia are done. Okay. They are no longer besties. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, I'm back. And Cece said at Natasha, I wouldn't appreciate a friend who continues to talk about me behind my back. She did it with Candy and her clique with Sheree here recently. And Cece, who are you speaking of? Are you speaking of Portia? I think you're speaking of Shamia because Shamia has been very two-faced lately. So I want to say that you're speaking on Shamia. So before I put you guys on hold, I was talking about the fact that Ralph is no longer Drew's problem. And the best way to get back at someone who is clearly trying to make you jealous, because I do believe that Ralph is always trying to make Drew jealous, is to honestly and authentically not care. Okay. And honestly, I think that Drew has moved on from Ralph. Um, I do think that she's moved on from Ralph, but the thing is, when you have kids with somebody, it always hurts. It still hurts. So, I think that Drew has definitely moved on, but that doesn't take away the fact that, her kid's father, the man that she thought that she would be with for the rest of her life, like that just didn't happen. So there is hurt in all of that. So when you see Drew tear up and all of that, those are just raw emotions, but I don't think it's because she's still in love with Ralph. And Cece said, I'm speaking on Shamia, okay? Always talking about Portia behind her back. It gets back to Portia, which is why she handles Shamia with a long spoon. You are absolutely right, Cece. And with everything, the back and forth with, Drew and Portia, Drew really made Portia look so shallow. And Drew did not come to play with Portia. Like, I think that Portia was not ready for all that smoke that Drew came with. And Natasha said Drew is completely over Ralph and his sassy ass, but yes, they have kids. It's hard to balance everything. Absolutely. Now, I feel like Portia, when she got up to hug Drew, like Drew was coming at her so hard. I think she was just like, girl, I don't even want no more of you. But I do feel like that was a sign of growth when it comes to Portia because I have been watching Portia and I honestly feel like Portia is really trying to improve herself. And I do see the growth in Portia. So I have to give credit where credit is due because there were a lot of ugly things said, but Portia still ended it all with a hug, and went over there and gave Drew a hug. Now, Do I believe there's still going to be and there's going to be shade? Absolutely. But in that moment, because we all know that they send them the entire season so that they can watch before the reunion. So I do believe after watching those seasons back that Portia seen that, she really didn't have a reason to be coming at Drew so hard about a baby daddy. Okay, girl, like I could see if it was your husband, ex-husband, soon to be husband, you never married that man. You know what I'm saying? And you did marry Simon. So I just didn't get where all the smoke was coming from. This is not going to be the first or the last time he's going to work with some of her friends. you know Atlanta is a very big place, but a very small place. Everybody know each other, everybody work together. That's just a part of the culture, in my opinion. And Cece said, something I noticed about the vets versus the newbies is that the vets mostly treat the reunions as a reset to just read one another and fake resolve stuff to get to the next season. Drew knows this. Okay. So what you're saying is you think that Drew had all of that smoke for Portia because she wants another contract for the next season. I think that's what you're saying, Cece. But, I love to see, Portia's growth and, when they shared their hug. And I didn't even know that Drew had been leaning on Portia her first season and that Portia had been there for her like that. So I definitely want to see these ladies, make up because the last thing you want to see anyway is two women falling out over a man. I don't care what the situation is. Two women should never fall out over a man. Now, if a woman disrespects you, that is what it is. But when a man is in the middle, I think women should always try to come together. And Cece says, yeah. So, Angela, because I feel like she wants Drew and Portia to be in turmoil because, Drew is Angela's girl. So she did say, after 17 episodes, and we all know it wasn't 17 episodes, but, you know, Angela was almost mute this entire reunion. Angela did not bring anything. And the only time she did say something is when she was interfering in somebody else's conversation. Like, Angela could have really stayed home, if you want to know the truth. She didn't bring anything but some fake receipts, and we'll get into that. So, when Drew started speaking about what Portia had done for her, and again, I had never heard this before. I thought those was beautiful words. And we come here for the shade of it all, but we also want these ladies to have a sisterhood, like Phaedra is always saying. They can have the shade, they can have fun, and also have a sisterhood. So, to be honest, that's kind of what this part one was giving. It was giving fun, shade, and sisterhood. Now, when it comes to this thing about the alliance, Portia is an OG, so I do believe that she agreed to the alliance. Okay. But I also believe that she was playing these ladies because Portia does not need to be in anybody's alliance, okay? Portia can hold her own, so I really don't feel like she's an OG. I just don't feel like she needed to be in an alliance. So I just feel like she was playing in those ladies' face, and when I say that, because it was supposed to be, when it comes to the alliance, it was supposed to be Shamia, Kelly, Britt, and Porsha. So at some point, Britt didn't feel like she was a part of the alliance, so she started spilling the tea on Kelly and Shamia. So when it comes to Shamia, I feel like Portia is done playing nice with Shamia. And I believe, again, that that's who she was referring to when she spoke about closing the door. And TNTG Mom says, did you see the ratings are down 150K? TNTG Mom, I did see that. I absolutely did see that. And what do you guys think the reason that, the ratings are down 150K? Why do y'all think that is? Because I enjoyed watching part one, but here's the question that I also have for you guys. What did y'all think about the way that they kept showing the behind the scenes, like freshening up their makeup? Like that was kind of new. I thought that stuff was supposed to stay behind the scene. Like I felt like when they kept doing that, it was making it not look classy. I don't know. It was just taken away from the whole glitz and glam of the reunion when they were showing us all of that behind the scenes. Now, some of you could have actually liked that, you know, but to me, it took away from the show. That's just my opinion. It made the show look cheap. And when it comes to Portia and Shamia, I think it's time that they close the door and move on. There doesn't have to be any beef. I mean, they can speak when they see each other, but as far as calling each other's besties, that's out the door. That's done. So when Angela called herself bringing her receipts, it was a flop. Angela did not prove anything with her so called receipts. I definitely feel like she set Phaedra up and her receipts just weren't receipting. It's just like she said that Phaedra was trying to get another contract or secure her contract. Girl, you're the newbie. Phaedra is the OG. She doesn't have to work that hard. All she has to do is show up. All eyes are on the newbies. We know what Phaedra can do, whether we like Phaedra or not. Like, we know what she brings to the show. And then on top of that, Phaedra really didn't know Angela well enough to go out of her way to set all this up, in my opinion. So Mama B says it was boring reunion to me. So Mama B thought the reunion was boring. And TNTG Mom says, yes, I'm tired of them. And Natasha said Phaedra didn't give the show anything either. That's why she's not on that my thumbnail with those other three ladies. Phaedra did not bring anything to this reunion part one or the season, if we're being honest. And Natasha also said, I forgot she came back. Yeah, she definitely didn't come back with a bang. And Cece said when Shamia explained that she reconnected with Portia when she married Cordell and got Roa, my antennas went up. It was all about access to Roa in my mind. Hmm, gotcha, Cece. So you think this entire time she remained friends with Portia just to kind of, for clout, basically. Hey, Paula, thank you so much for being here. It's been a minute. And Natasha said, correct. Got it. I mean, for her to say that Phaedra picked her out of everybody to just come for her and accuse her husband of cheating, like, Honestly, I just don't see that because it's just like, girl, who are you besides Charles Oakley's hidden wife? Like, when Phaedra said that she did not know that Charles was married, I believe her. Phaedra is very well connected in Atlanta. She runs too many businesses not to be well connected in Atlanta. So the fact that she said that she didn't know that Charles was married, and this was in a conversation with Porsha. So it's not even like she was talking to Angela. So I believe that Phaedra did not know that Charles was married. So that leads me to believe that Charles spent a lot of times out there in those Atlanta streets without his wife. Okay, let's just start there. And Cece said people keep harping on Phaedra being so mean to Angela in her confessionals. They forget that the scenes had been filmed before confessionals are done. So the setup, oh gosh, give me a second. So the Phaedra setup had happened already. Okay. And TNTG Mom says this show is doomed. Just my opinion. Okay. So I'm just give me a second. I'm just still trying to take in what Cece said. Okay. I see what you're saying, Cece. And Cece also said since Charles doesn't have a ring and apparently Angela is not a girl about town, I could see Phaedra not knowing about her. Exactly my point, Cece. So then Angela tried to switch it over to Portia since, Portia wasn't signing up for her lies. She tried to turn, her aggression over to Portia because she felt some kind of way because Portia said that she didn't believe that Phaedra was trying to set her up. So I don't know. Like, all of that aggression that Angela had throughout the season, that got her all of this clout where everybody was giving her all these, accolades and, whatever the case may be. She didn't bring any of that energy to the reunion. Now, I don't know what part two is going to bring, but Angela definitely did not bring the heat when it came to part one of this reunion. So I don't know. She need to get this together because, girl, you are not securing a contract for next season. Like, again, she could have just not showed up with Brett, if we're being honest. Angela didn't bring anything. And I think a lot of people were kind of expecting that because of everything she did during the season. But that's just not what happened. She didn't bring anything. And Natasha said, I think Angela was reaching with her receipts about the informant knowing Phaedra from high school. That was so dumb what she was saying because I have a lot of siblings too. And it would be nothing for somebody to have went to school with one of my siblings and I don't know that person from Adam. It could even be a half sibling. Like she was not proving anything with those receipts. And if she was going to bring her little paperwork to the reunion, she definitely should have did more research. And Cece said, I think the messy guy's friend Alex gave Angela until 4 p.m. today to apologize before he drops even more tea about that setup. This is a mess. Who lives like that? Wow, 4 o'clock today, Cece? OMG. See, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. That is very interesting. So, guys, that was pretty much it when it comes to the reunion. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a little tacky with all of the behind the scenes showing Porsha laying up their sleeve. I wasn't really there for all of that, but maybe they just wanted to add some interesting behind the scenes. They could have left it out for me, but maybe some people enjoyed it. I don't know. Cece said, I have a lot of family too. Some of my cousins were wild back in the day. If someone asked me if I was related to them, I said no. I don't want any leftover smoke. That's funny, but I get it. Absolutely. I mean, it is what it is, but I totally agree. And then some people just have small circles and different circles from their family. Like me, and I have hung around my siblings, friends, or whatever the case may be, but everybody have their own friends. Their So I could see where Phaedra had no idea who Angela was talking about. And Natasha said, "That's right, Cece." So again, guys, I don't know it almost seems like they covered everything in part one. So I don't know why they needed a part two and three. I guess there are some things that we don't know, but it seems like a lot was covered in part one. So I'm looking forward to see what other tea is going to be spilled with part two. And I feel like if they're going to do a part one, a part two, and a part three, I think they should have different looks instead of all three parts they have on the same dress. Like, I think it should almost be like a wedding where you change clothes a couple of times or whatever the case may be. I think that would be something nice to add to the reunion. Maybe they can start off with a very fancy dress, and as the day progresses, put on something a little bit lighter, and change it up a little bit, something similar but different. And Cece said, I wish Kenya had been invited. I do too, Cece. I definitely wish Kenya was there. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Guys, if you did not like the video on your way in, please like the video on your way out. And if this is your first time catching a live, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you just happen to be catching the replay, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That helps to keep me in the algorithm. And drop down in the comments so that we can keep this conversation going. Thank you guys so much for watching, and bye for now.